Welcome to Renaissance Charge Videos. I'm Rick Friedrich, and today we're going to talk about have a video response to a question, or rather dogmatic statements followed by a question, or more like a declaration from one of my YouTube viewers who commented in the comments section of the last video that I just did before this one. And this comment I'm going to quote entirely, and we'll go over all the statements and questions. Now, I deleted this comment because it doesn't fulfill my requirements for leaving it up, which means it was either rude or assuming, judgmental, without any facts, without any evidence of the facts. So there's no point in leaving up all that negativity. There's so many good comments. That's wonderful. I don't delete comments that go against what I'm saying, but when they're rude and worthless, then I will delete them and ban the person too. I don't give them another chance. That's it. So, I mean, they have to do something pretty bad like this, you'll see, to get banned. Now, I do then respond to them, usually, even though their comments are deleted. But I want to do it in a way that's constructive. So in this case, I'm going to do this video. I don't have time for it, but I'm going to do it. I think it's relevant at this time to do this, because a whole generation has gone by since I started doing this, and people like this person do not know the details. So we're going to go through a number of things. One of the points I want to get into at some point in here is the assumption that nobody has done anything to help anybody learn about free energy. I mean, that's kind of the bottom line here with this person. They're assuming that's not the case because they're entirely ignorant, or they're deliberately lying about the question, which I guess is most of the time. They are trying to pull more things out. By insulting you, it has a good effect of drawing more information out of you. And I didn't mind doing that at times, like responding to people. When I was on the overunity.com forum, a couple of years ago again, I went on maybe like 3.5, almost 4 years ago now. I was pulled in there and I responded, and they thought they were going to beat me up, but I ended up getting probably a couple of them fired from their job of deliberately trying to disprove free energy. Anyway, that's a long story. So this person might have been a bot. I don't think so, but the way their YouTube name shows up almost looks like that. They've got no comments. They just showed up on YouTube a year ago, and they do these things. So anyway, so this is the response that I want to give here. He says, I may be wrong, but Don Smith says at the end of his second video that he has signed several contracts, and at the end of this fourth video that he cannot talk about certain things because he has signed contracts. And to top it all off, he does his demonstration with a closed suitcase. Alright, so let's look at a couple of things. First of all, the suitcase is open, and haven't you known? So this person doesn't even know that the contents in the suitcase are already already revealed. I showed this in the book in so many pages. I've talked about it in video, but you just need to watch the videos. Everything that you think isn't true is true. Everything you assume here is wrong. And I've done my best to show what I could, but you're not paying attention. And a lot of you are, and I appreciate that diligence to learn and succeed. So first of all, on this comment then, well, secondly, because I said the demonstration with a closed suitcase was later shown as the suitcase, or sorry, the shoebox transformer. I do have eyewitness testimony who saw inside of that. The third video, and now this office video that I've just released, showing that suitcase demonstration again. And that was the first time that was ever shown on the internet to anyone. So you're welcome for seeing that, I guess. So anyway, he later revealed that, I think it was 2000, 2001, that later video, this was what was in the suitcase. Now I have eyewitness testimony, two people that actually saw in the suitcase. Someone opened it up, and it was untimely for that to be shown at the time because of contracts that Don had. But he then showed it later on. So you're 25 years wrong, buddy, because that's what was shown. Now that was one part of it, and it was one of the met glass cores, and it was wound in a certain way. I tried to draw attention to that in the book, and these are images that are online already that you can see. And so it was a transformer of sorts, and then it was, actually it's being shown in another video right now, and one of my friends is showing it online. Anyway, that particular arrangement of the coil. Secondly, the second part of the circuit was just simply an inverter circuit, the bridge rectifier, and all the usual parts that you have in these Don Smith systems. So that's what was in it, simple and plain. He described it. If you go through video 1 so from 94 all the way to 2000, and all those videos, I think like 1 to 6 videos, then you're going to have all the information right there, without the book or without any other detail. It's all in there, buddy. So second point, you may be wrong. Well, yeah, you're wrong in everything you're saying here, buddy. But Don Smith says that at the end of his second video that he has signed several contracts. Well, what's wrong with that? At least he didn't abandon us. And I've had great pressure on me to stop doing all that I'm doing and going off. But it is my commitment to keep this information going. And I don't profit hardly anything from either my sales in these kits or in doing these videos. My views are suppressed and all that. I don't get hardly any support from anybody. I do from some of you. I thank you for doing that. But all these complaints, but where's the help, right? I mean, some of you guys are great. I really appreciate you. And I appreciate all the customers. But I don't make tons of money. Don made a lot more money. I don't make hardly anything. So anyway, so he talks about criticizing this guy, Don, for his contracts. What's wrong with having signed contracts? that you can't get into a particular detail. Like my policy is I don't get into the parts that I use, because every time I do a kit that has some unique part to it, immediately all the worldwide parts of that particular part are gone. They're bought out. That means nobody else can even get them. I mean, one time I had a meeting in one of my homes, like I was living in this house, and I think 13 people showed up to that meeting, 13 only. And within a couple of hours after people left that night for the meeting, somebody at that meeting went and bought all the worldwide parts of that. It was just a little transformer. And I had set out to put that in the kit. This was the kit too, and it was gone. And I know who did it. I know who did it, the agent who did that. So my policy is I can't get into the parts that I use. And I have to find parts in these kits that aren't in danger of being bought out worldwide. So my policy is to also promote things that people can have access to. So I have like 5 different things that I will avoid. Like I could do probably 100 free energy devices, and only 15%, many models within those 15 are actually doable that beat out a solar panel, right? Like, in other words, are the parts going to be obsolete? Is the system stable? Is it easy enough to make? Is it safe? And I always forget the fifth one. But anyway, I try and make things in a way and focus on things that are doable for everybody. And that doesn't mean I don't focus too personally on things that are difficult. And like all the RF stuff is beyond most of my viewers. And I'll get into that maybe later on. So that is something that requires some diligence and some learning, some conventional theory too. And most people aren't geared to do that. They're done with their studies, they just want something quick fix. So I've given something like that. And you'll probably be wondering what this is, but I'll explain it a little bit later. Some of you know what that is. Alright, so then, first paragraph done. So then he says, Tom Bearden and John Bedini are more of the same. Books and videos, truths mixed with lies, and nothing clear. Well, it's true that both of those two, what I would call agents, had an agenda to mix, not so much mixing in lies with truth. I mean, towards the end, Bedini was really going off on that, adding a whole bunch of non-truths. But the point is that there was so much truth, the goal of that methodology of disinformation was to overwhelm people with too much information, and then get everybody looking for the next thing, never expecting to have a completion of anything. And so, and also throwing all this drama, right, into the mix. So when I came along in 2004, I'm a guy who completes a task. I want to finish it out, want to master it, and that's what this whole video is going to be about. What did I do? Because that's the real question at the end there. But I wouldn't say that nothing was clear from Bedini or Bearden. I mean, Bearden said a lot of good points. He brought out a lot of good things, and said a lot of false things too. But there was, from both these characters, enough to be energy independent. And shame on you if you couldn't do it, right? I spent the first 6 months at this. I mastered this technology, that technology, to the point where I was energy independent. I could do whatever I want, but I had no money, to tell you honestly. I had nothing. I was poor as anything, and only did the lawnmower because I got a donation, gave me enough money to do that lawnmower replication. So in the first couple of years there, I didn't have anything, and but I was showing people how to get stuff for free, find stuff and make an energy device for free. I literally think I did a couple of models with just, the only thing I paid for was glue. Everything else was from garbage or things, you know, whatever. So I'm kind of like a lot of the Africans where they take the garbage and they make wonderful creations. I'm really impressed with that African engineering. And it comes from my grandfather a little bit, who was quite poor, and he would do that sort of thing, work from a low budget and make things. So anyway, next point here. As for you, I know people who have bought your books and your kits and are where they started. Wow. He knows some people that are where they started. I know quite a few too that have never gotten around to it. In fact, I've had several customers buy the tank coiler from me back in 2010 or 11, that one, and 7 years later call me. Just getting out of the box right now. I mean, not everybody has the time to do something. And I know why. I think I need to talk about that a little bit, why people don't succeed. And of course he's going to say the next point, which I'll get into, well, it's a little bit further down. I'll talk about that then, but I know why people don't succeed. People do want to be spoon-fed, of course. They don't have the time to focus anymore. See, what's happened in the last 20 years, but even way before that, you know, before I can really, I mean, of course I remember back over 40 years ago, but in the last, well, the smartphone age is the problem. People don't have any attention span anymore. They can't focus, they can't immerse themselves in a subject. So this is why I've been focusing, especially in my meetings, in immersion and mastery. And that's what's going to appear in this new schoolgirl kit, which I am still writing, people. I'm sorry it's so delayed, but I want to do this really well. So I'm still working on that. It'll be done shortly, hopefully. Anyway, mastery of a subject, really becoming scientific. And so people don't have the opportunity to do that, but they are in a state, and I see this throughout the whole world in the workforce. People aren't there anymore. They're so addicted to their smartphone stimulation that they can't do anything prolonged. It's all the quick fix, the instantaneous fix. And all of us have been affected by that, unless you're like the people I'm around here, the Amish, and they don't have that problem. So that's very important to realize. So that's something that really plays a part here, but not just with this research, but with across the board. Employers have a hard time finding anybody who's not so transfigured and made useless, right? So people can't think because all that frequency is manipulating their brainwaves and everything. And they're addicted to that stimulation. So that's one of many reasons why they're still at where they started. People have gone through, like that kit, well, just a bunch of the kits that I have, and they've just read through quickly because they're looking for some kind of schematic or whatever that they can just, in 5 minutes, figure out everything, you know, and because they're racing for that money, that gold mine at the end, and that's what it's about. I want the money, right? And so in that state, they're not in a state of scientific discovery. They're not able, and so they're going to miss it, even if I say it right out loud. They're just skimming over so fast. And I know, I've talked to these people, but so many of them have said to me, other people, good people, said, oh, I'm so glad that you wrote it in a way that pulled this out by deep contemplation. And but don't get me wrong, everything's in plain sight right there, and it's not even a trick. It's, if you bother to read, you'll see. So this is quite an insult. He knows somebody. He hasn't looked at anything of mine, and he's looked at maybe 1 or 2 of my videos. Probably only a few of these videos that I just posted the other day, and whatever. So he says, I'll go on to the next point. I don't know what you do and you don't say like everyone else, but what I can talk about is your videos. No, you can't, because you show in this that you are not even familiar with videos. I mean, look at the video, if you went back far enough, simple free energy. I mean, I explain in the most basic terms that this guy was looking for, and he could have just realized that, but he didn't. So anyway, it gives me the opportunity to expand upon these other points. You talk about extra energy. No, it's a question. You talk about extra energy. Energy independence is the solution to the great pillars of the civilization, including unrestricted access to water and therefore food. This is not about charging your cell phone. Again, these are incoherent statements here. Energy independence is the solution to the great pillars of the civilization. If you're in the modern Western world, you have access to solar panels, buddy. You can have your energy independence with some solar panels. It doesn't really cost that much. And we've provided a charging situation where you can keep your batteries for good, right? The Renaissance chargers have done that for almost 20 years now. And, you know, so that solved the whole alternative energy problem, where the batteries need to, you know, be replaced most of the time, all the time, except for this technology. So solar panels, wind generation, not too hard. You can make your own stuff, your wind generator or whatever. I've done that stuff before I was even doing this. So what I figured out was almost no one in North America, or at least Canada and the United States, needs free energy. They're not, like, you can get a job, you can make a living. Compared to the other world, and even compared to Europe, I mean, some countries, in many countries in Europe, people are struggling, and they have so much restrictions that it's not easy. I have friends in Germany who have told me, when we had that German meeting last time, 2 years ago, all their limitations. I mean, how many solar panels they can have. And I had some Spanish guys tell me in Spain, you have to pay tax on your solar panels. Not just when you buy them, but because you have them. I don't know if that's still the same. But I understand in other parts of the world it would be convenient to have free energy. But we are not needing any electricity to survive and live. we've come to adopt this culture to make it difficult to live without electricity, and that's problematic. But if you go far enough away from the city, and you can figure it out. You can live a life like they've done for thousands of years. It's not so simple as I just stated, but if we trust in the Lord God, He will guide us and provide for us. And I know that sounds easy to say here, but I speak as a historian, having surveyed all of history, and know the struggles. I grew up in so-called poverty myself, and technically I still live in poverty right now. So for what money I actually make every year, just so that you know. So, but I feel like even then I'm still living like a king in this country here. But I do my best to give to everybody whatever I can. So anyway, energy independence is the solution to the great pillars of civilization. Unrestricted access to water. Well, I mean, I could get off onto the whole water thing in the sense that the water we have is so polluted. That's another point that's even more important, which like I said, I'm not rejecting all these points here. I'm pointing them out as they come to mind, that what we need more than just water is clean water, and we need to deal with the pollution problem. So a big part of my focus is safety and purification of this world. And actually, one of the most polluting things in this world is electricity. Okay, so the idea that we need electricity is fallacious. We don't need electricity in the sense that we're using it today. And if we go back 200 years, we'd be in a better state of the use of electricity than we are now. Right now it's killing people, and the cell phones especially are really harming people. And that's another subject that I can get into another time, as I've done in the past. And then food is part of that subject. And this is not about charging your cell phone. Well, that's a good thing. We don't need to have cell phones. Unfortunately, they're kind of forcing them upon us. They've addicted us, made us addicted to the cell phones. All right, he says, there are people who are dependent on electricity dying out there. So before I go on with that, from the next part of the sentence, dependent upon electricity who are dying out there. Maybe you could qualify what you mean by that. Like I said, I would prefer that this, well, I have said in the past, I would prefer that this world did not use any electricity. We would be in a better place. Now, it doesn't mean that electricity has to be a bad thing, but the present addiction to it and use of it is causing more harm than good. And just like alcohol is not an evil in itself, but the use of alcohol has not been able to be properly done without great evils upon society. So it's a hard thing to navigate through, how we deal with those subjects. But anyway, he goes on to say, okay, so there are people who are dependent on electricity dying out there, and I always read the same thing, quote, people don't know how to follow instructions. And then he goes on to swear and says, no one has ever given a single detailed diagram, blah, blah, blah. All right, so he's saying that everybody's saying people don't know how to follow instructions. Well, as somebody who has taught thousands of people all over the world, and on forums and in person, yeah, people don't know how. No, it's not so much they don't know how, that is part of it, but they don't care to. especially people who are actually electrically trained, they will look at something and try and correct it immediately, or think that they know how it works and then whatever. So no, they don't follow instruction. It's a matter of fact. Any teacher in this kind of capacity will know that and explain that. People think that they know a subject, they don't. What I've taught many times is a major thing to focus on is what not to do. In other words, you assume from a conventional training or even a basic understanding that things in this device function this way or that normal way, and they don't. We're actually trying to do the opposite, even maybe using the same parts, make a slight little change, and that fundamentally changes the outcome. So yeah, another X on that paragraph. He says, no one has ever given a single detailed diagram of how to actually obtain a unity system. No one gives specific data on issues such as the Q factor of the coils or the frequency of the exact model of the capacitors, but everyone wants to help humanity. Again, these are cliches. I mean, it gets tiring. And this is the agenda of these particular agents, like this guy is an agent, no doubt. They rehash this over and over until maybe other people rehash it, because that's what they've heard. They just repeat like a parrot what they are hearing. They make these assumptions. Everybody has the right to their opinions, right? No, they don't. You don't really have the right to your opinion, to utter it as if it's true. Keep your opinions to yourself. Well, I'm not going to get up and stop that film. So anyway, you don't have the right to your opinions. So leave them to yourself and talk to people who care about your opinions. All right, it's over. So anyway, a single diagram of how to obtain a unity system. Well, did you even look at any of my videos? Given quite a few diagrams, my friend. And, you know, I went through historically. You know, the first free energy device has been misunderstood. And I went through all these in the Benita system. I demonstrated the Benita system. Very simple. And yet, only a handful of people have ever done anything with that. It's a mystery to me. Quite a mystery. And I will show you soon a device that nobody's ever focused on, but not right now. That's been out there for a long time. I've shown you guys patents. I've shown everybody patents. I've demonstrated patents. I've demonstrated them in person. And so let's go into this thing right now. Well, first of all, just as a passing notice, the Q factor of coils? I mean, look it up, buddy. The Q factor of coils is taught all over the place. So what are you talking about? Anyway, so what is this thing? Now this has been through like the war. So this is perhaps the most frequently shown, demonstrated free energy device ever in history that's non-conventional free energy device, because let's face it, solar panels, wind generators, and all the conventional systems are free energy devices. They are unity, over unity. So again, people don't know what they're talking about. But this, on the other hand, is the tape motor drive. And it's been beaten up so much that it's like got some broken wires here in this very crude circuit. So Bedini gave me this tape motor drive, and you can see the one model that he had, where he had, so there's 4 coils here. This is like my fan kit. And so two of the coils in his case were made into trigger coils and two were motor coils. And so he had two transistors. So I've made several different models of these kinds of circuits and changed things around where I had one trigger coil, or we would have, like one of the motor coils was made trigger coil. In this case, that's what we were doing. Or we unwound the coil and rewound it with a trigger coil so that there were still 4 motor coils, which is what we typically do now with that circuit. So this model, let me tell you some history on this. So you can see at the back there's 2 plugs for 9-volt batteries here. And so when I had a big fan on top of this, that was about this big, like 12-inch plastic fan, and it would just spin and chirp away. That was kind of the secret of this kind of system. When we load it down, it runs much more efficient than unloaded. I mean, it's still loaded with the fan, but when I add the extra load, it's really chirping away, which is like oscillations. Then the lowest amp draw on the input and the highest charging output. So there you have it, another secret. But I haven't made that a secret. I've been showing that. But I demonstrated this personally to over 200,000 students across the entire country. Well, I didn't go to Alaska, and I haven't been to Hawaii yet, or even the Northeast. I didn't go to any of those places. But I went all the way around over a year. And I talked to, I mean, there was millions of students that passed by, because I was in the open square and I was doing missionary work, but I was demonstrating this device. And I personally showed it and explained it to 200,000 people, mostly individually, but many times there was about 10 people, and they all got what I was showing them. So it wasn't, I'm not talking about people passing by that didn't even notice it. I'm talking about that. So I don't think there was ever such a demonstration, at least before that time, that I'm aware of. Correct me if I'm wrong. But what I ended up showing people, like, just as a side note here to get into it, so I would ask, like, especially when I was at the tech schools, and so all the atheists would always come out and debate me. Every one of them heartily shook my hand, though, after I talked to them for hours and sometimes even days. And because I'm a creationist, and I've written a book against macroevolution, or abiogenesis actually, and I've talked about that in the past in my videos. But what happens is I asked the students, the tech students, do you have a dead battery that's at 0, like an alkaline battery, you know, that's been in a clock and it's just, or in a voltmeter and it's completely dead, there's not any voltage on it? And sometimes they would say, yeah, I do. I said, well, go get it, bring it to me. So they bring it to me, I would put it on the charging port here, and I would hook it up, and I would be running mine. I remember one time I ran it for 10 minutes, and it's charging away, and then it, so I stopped it, and you could clearly see with my voltmeter, I showed all this, that which one was the input, which one was the charging. So his battery was somewhat charged up, and so I replaced it with the input battery, and the input battery I left off. So now we just had his battery, and then it's running the fan, right? And then you could see the neon bulb light up because there's no charging battery on here. This little neon bulb would light up, and that was indicating about 90 volts was before it turned on, right? 90 volts. Probably starting around 60 volts and then terminating about 90. And then I had him touch it, the 2 terminals, and he got a shock. And he was amazed. So I demonstrated this. I explained how it worked and how we could take a conventional system and literally rewire it, right? I can do quite a few different motors, different types of motors, AC motors too in the same way, and just simply rewire it. And that's really all the free energy devices are nothing new. Everything that I've ever seen in a over unity system that I can remember, I might be mistaken in this, forgetting something, but it's done in conventional technology somewhere or another. It's just the combination of conventional parts can make a free energy device. So, whoa, demystified the whole thing here when I said that. So it's a combination, and that's what you find in many of the patents, as they show. So anyway, there you have it, buddy, right there. You can make something small be bigger, right? You can just make it bigger. What's your energy needs? Like, you want over unity, how big does it have to be over unity? You know, how big can you make your model? You know, why do I have to keep saying all these things, right? But it's good to go over this again. Then he talks about the model of the capacitors. What did Don show you? He shows you exactly the big, huge capacitors that he got from Netherlands. And I got the same ones. I built the exact same thing that he built, right? And every time I did that with Don Smith systems, they worked like he said they would. And I've never found his stuff. He's definitely made incorrect statements, like he said with the oxygen thing, which is a major blunder. It's embarrassment because he was a geologist. Don, how could you say that? I don't know. Maybe it was a stroke in his head or something. I don't know why. But otherwise, the models he said, they worked. So when he spoke on that subject, I mean, he's not always accurate in his theory, but are you accurate in your theory? Who knows? But he did make things work. I was able to replicate whatever I tried to do with Don's stuff, always worked out. And, you know, I started where he said to start. Where is it? There's a coil here somewhere. Oh, it's up there. Never mind. Well, let me get this guy. When Don said, start here, start with this coil, and learn about radio frequency and how to make a radio circuit. That's what he said to start with, and of course I expanded upon it. And then I did the Model 2, which was the multi-coils. And you've seen the demonstrations that I've done. So I did what he said to do, and it worked. And now thousands of people have that and are doing that. So this guy's telling me that people are still at where they started. Well, that's not true. Obviously not true. So anyway, the models of capacitors, yeah. I looked it up, found it, bought it. There's your model capacitor. He showed us numerous different things about capacitors, and even really how to make your own in a sense. The one whole system is like a big capacitor. But again, it's not about special part numbers, as I said earlier. But everyone wants to help humanity. This guy's saying, well, help humanity. I trust that I've done that. Look, for 20 years we've been selling battery chargers around the world, and I estimate about 10 million useless batteries have been brought back by our customers to a useful condition, many of which are still working, or I don't know how many wouldn't be, but so is that helping humanity? Did that clean up an environmental problem? Did that solve one of the biggest environmental problems in the world? Yeah. So I guess everyone wants to help humanity, but Rick is not one of them, right? Whatever. I understand, he says, that in the 90s or the 20s, Well, we're in the 20s right now, so whatever. I understand that in the 90s or 20s, giving out that kind of information was suicidal. But today, a detailed video goes viral across all networks in a matter of minutes, and it no longer makes sense to kill the messenger because you can't kill millions of people. Wow, there's a lot in that statement, isn't there? I don't know what about the 30s and 40s and 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. He just said 90s and 20s. Well, because he's referring to Stanley Meyer, it's kind of doubtful that all these people were killed anyway, in my opinion now. I think they want you to believe that, they want you to be afraid, and I fell under that impression at times too. And I don't know for sure whether people have or haven't been. I know there's a lot of fakery, as I pointed out in a recent video, of people that are retiring. And it looks to me like Stanley Meyer's story is of that case. And there's, I mean, it's impossible to make a conclusion on it, but why assume a story that has you have no ability to verify is one way or the other? A lot of people have come to me with so-called inside information, but who are those people really? And where did they get their information really? So again, like I said before, we need to take a step back from assuming we know everything and can know everything about everything. Right? We didn't used to think that way before the internet. Now we think in 5 minutes we can figure out something. Anything in this world. And it's like, you know, give it up. Stop assuming so much. It's the ruin of you to be so assuming. So, a detailed video goes viral. Well, how does it go viral unless they push it? Do you think anybody becomes famous in the last 100 years unless they were pushed to be famous? Unless they wanted you to be famous? It doesn't work that way. Now, I'm not saying that God can't bring forth somebody and put them in the limelight like we find with Joseph and Moses and, you know, people who stood out because God intended that to happen. But in the world, what we're talking about is in the domain of the world. YouTube is in the domain of the world. And have my videos gone viral? I mean, they are useful, are they not? Is this guy right? Am I not doing something useful here? But, like for example, I put a video out on how to build this fan thing, and I show you a real free energy device, how you can do it, and then nobody, like a few thousand people look at it, maybe? Does it go viral? No. But a video where it's fake, the guy fakes it with some magnets hidden inside, or, you know, blowing some airstream or something, which I know how they do all this fakery, that gets 5 million hits. Because why? It's viral because it's entertaining. It's not viral because it's true. And because it's fake, it goes viral. But when it's true, nobody wants to make that go viral because it gets suppressed. It's not pushed forward, right? So that whole thing about it would be true if it goes viral is the opposite. What's not true goes viral unless it's like a cat video or whatever, you know what I'm talking about. So this whole idea that you can win by going through the networks, I know people who think they're high and mighty and they think that they can convince the world of things and they've got control of the networks. Well, good luck with that one. See how far that goes. Because I don't see that working for such people who make such claims. And it's presumption. So he goes on. However, the question, why do you want something for free that took me X years to learn, end quote, arises because there is knowledge that if it breaks down the established paradigm of scarcity, can change the world. Now this guy needs to write a little better. It's not quite intelligently written here. Anyway, the point is that why should somebody give away something that they haven't made anything from, that they designed, and just give it away to everybody else, and then make it so that they can't benefit from it, or at least initially. You know, so that's like the whole idea that you can't invent something and benefit from it, you just have to immediately give it away to everybody else. I don't see any cause of that. It's kind of like saying you don't own the right to keep your bank account, any money in your bank account, because really, aren't you wanting to help humanity? Well, you can't help humanity if you can't help yourself. I mean, if you don't earn a decent wage, make a living, and be able to feed your body, then how are you supposed to help anybody? So you're saying that it's kind of like ministers. So free energy inventors and ministers are supposedly supposed to do it for free, but everybody else is expected to work and make an income and keep that to themselves. Where's the logic in that? You know, everybody's trying to, well, supposedly they're supposed to be doing a service to humanity in whatever they do, but why is some people supposed to give away everything and not get anything for it? According to this, that's the assumption, that's the demand, that's the evil judgment they have. The point is, when somebody like Don came along and said, I can't talk about certain things, just like I will say, I'm not going to do all that work for you and find you all the parts that I'm using so that I can't buy them ever again. Because it's not just that good people are buying things, but what happens is some entity or agency buys out everything so that nobody can do it. So that's a problem. But if you actually teach a concept and then let people buy their own variety of it, like I teach in a way that I show that it's not some unique, like I said, one of the characteristics, I don't want to promote something that requires such a unique part that could go obsolete. And so I don't see like Don's systems being that way. I mean, sure, in maybe some of the, like he talked about terphenol D being an ideal substance to use, but it costs so much, but it's not necessary. Like we talked about using a big stainless steel pipe. Let me go get one, because I've got one sitting right here. I'll explain. So here's a free energy device for you. Hello. I always have to do that when I see a tube. So instead of using the terphenol D, we use this as a dipole. And look at that oscillation in there. The only problem with this device, as he said, is that it will go for miles and disrupt people's electronics for miles. So, anyway, you can use other device or other parts. Maybe you're not get like megawatts out of it, but like he talked about someone getting a kilowatt out of using that particular stainless steel tube. So there's a lot of interchanging parts that you can use, and anyway, that's sort of off topic there, but yeah, I mean, people are entitled to how much they want to share. Also, some people don't want to be bombarded with constant questions. I get a lot of people presuming upon my time and don't pay me anything for it. So should I just do nothing else and stop doing other important matters because I'm supposed to answer everybody's questions? I do what I can, but I mean, it'd be nice if people, contributed while they're asking questions, and some people have, and I really appreciate that. I've never charged people really for doing that. I think on a couple of occasions to some millionaires I charged some money. But anyway, then it says, technologies that military already has, but ordinary mortals do not. So let's avoid the story of, if this technology falls into the wrong hands, quote. Well, the point is that I agree that the system already has this technology. I know that for a fact, from multiple reasons. I know at least some of the things are capable of being done. And I will say this, that there's a lot of things that are claimed, people assume exist that don't exist. It's just science fiction. And I know I was in Bearden's house where him and Ken Moore both were starting to talk nonsense, and I stopped them right in their course. I think they were trying to impress me and say things that weren't true, and I just called them out. I said, started laughing at them. You guys are a little too much science fiction here, because I'm not ignorant that those things don't exist, like interspace travel, like traveling at the speed of light or whatever, and all these things. And I called them out on it, and then they realized that I knew more than they thought I knew, that I would just believe whatever is said. So I know a lot of things don't exist, that they say exist, and people assume exist, but I also know there's a lot of things that do exist people don't believe exist, like these energy devices. Modifying the weather. In fact, I found the mechanism recently of how they control the weather now. And it's all on old YouTube videos that the guy stopped posting, I think, 2017. Very interesting. I mean, I knew that they were controlling it, but I didn't know exactly how until now. I mean, there's several different ways. So there's the wrong hands, believe me, on their cell phones are monitoring everything you say, and they can even monitor your brain waves too now. So I've seen that directly. So this whole thing is wrong, and we'll get down now to this last paragraph again. If you really want to change the world, or you want to be known by your fruits, yeah, I do want to change the world. In fact, what I came to realize some years ago was where I started off before I even knew of any of this stuff. Like more than 30 years ago, where I started was in seeing this world come to the state of the millennium, that the end of the world, the righteous years, where all these former years will be forgotten, because God's kingdom will come on earth as it is in heaven. His will be done. His glory will shine throughout the whole world, and we'll be reconciled to Him, and therefore to the rest of the creation, and where we will no longer be at war with each other, and the creation will then, which is yearning for the appearance of the sons of God, the people of God, which we don't see right now. And we've only seen in pockets and glimpses of it in various revivals and times, better days, that they don't even teach you about, which is my expertise. That's what I teach on throughout my life on that subject. And so when we come to that place, that's what I'm about. That's what I'm trying to do. So it's not a technological answer, people. Actually, this technology has really been a distraction for what the more important work of my life. And when I started doing this, I was distracted from what I should have been doing. Now I continue to use this to better people, but technology, as Tesla tried to say that technology and the machine was the savior, because he was a godless man and misled us with such statements and such mentality. So I do want to be known by my fruit on a spiritual level rather than technological level. But I've done what I could here, and so I'm still making efforts to do this. He says that make a video explaining in great detail how to get off the grid like you did. But I'll add the last bit. Well, I did. I did make a video, many videos. I probably made about 500 videos in my time, and I deleted some of the older stuff that's maybe obsolete, and there's a lot of private videos I've done for people. But before YouTube, which was 2007, I was original YouTube, on YouTube at the very beginning, but it was Google videos before that, and I mean still in the 90s I was doing stuff, but I came on the scene with this energy stuff 2004, and did many videos then. They're still up there somewhere. And I showed that. I showed how to do that. In fact, those were all in those groups. That's why we're going to start a new group up, and I'll announce that shortly, where it's not going to be taking as much as my time the way we'll do this group, but in those early groups I showed all this stuff. I mean, we looked at the SSG circuit somewhere here. It's lying around here. Oh, here it is. And this is my drawing right here. So you see this all over the internet still. So I drew this all out, and that was the wheel that Bedini had, which I showed here in the video recently, a similar type of wheel system. And there it is, the SG circuit. And yeah, that's how I got energy independent. I built this times, it was either 4 or 8 circuits. After the first 6 months, I was able to power as much as I could afford the circuitry. I was able to be energy independent in that context. So I didn't have enough money to even buy an inverter at that time, like a 3,000 watt inverter to power the house. But I had, eventually I had the Ryder lawnmower, but before that I actually ran the same kind of motor in my, I took away the blower for the furnace and put in my motor. I fit it all into there, blowing the air around. And then eventually I made a heater circuit, which I initially made with one of the little oscillators, about 2 of them actually, and I heated the room. 200 watts worth of heat all winter long in that room that had no airflow in it, like there was no ventilation up to circulate heat up there. And then I made a bigger system for the whole house, but then I moved, and then I was renting for years, so it's harder to do stuff because you can't modify a house when you're renting due to the lease and all that, and landlords coming into your house. So sometimes I would run extension cords in places that I rented, and so anyway, what did I do at the beginning? I ran lawnmower, I ran generators, I ran fans, I ran lights, heaters, what have you, once you do the generator, you can run any device, refrigerator, how much do you really need, right? Depends on where you live, how cold it is. So, how did I show? I showed you all this. Okay, so maybe you're not geared to do RF stuff, radio frequency stuff, but this is plug and play. That's why I brought back the SG kit, and I want to do it really well. And I've had some distractions. I had 6 months of distraction where I was supposed to be, as I was saying, working on an international level, solving world problems, and that didn't turn out. And that's all I'll say about it. But I, had an opportunity, I thought, to make a big difference, and it just didn't materialize. So I'm doing what I can, and I figure I needed to finish this thing up with the SG because that was a race, as I've talked about. So we'll continue to work on that and finish that up, but it's not going to be a finished thing in the sense of, like, we'll open it up to expansion, right? We'll see where it goes. Anyway, he says, making a video explaining how to get off the grid. I did, yeah, okay. Like I said, I did that a long time ago. I've continued to do it, show that over different ways. So again, there's a difference between a more complex system that is dangerous, and when you have higher output, it becomes dangerous, and I have a responsibility to protect people from that. I would be liable if I told people you should do this without warning them, so I'll say things like seek expert advice or whatever, conform to your local code or whatever, this is for entertainment purposes, whatever. Anyway, he says, let's stop wasting time with 30-year-old videos that only confirm that no one really wanted to change the world. Who are you, buddy, to say that no one really wanted to change the world? Of course, many people wanted to change the world, and many people did. I've got a whole bookshelf of authors that I've republished that did change the world and made a difference. And this 30-year-old video of Don Smith was appreciated by everybody but this one person. He was the only one that wrote something negative. And I'm not letting it get to me, but I want to take an opportunity to respond to it because it needs to be said. And Don, let's talk about Don a little bit. Don was retired, and he came out and he shared what he could. He left us with more information that's useful than anybody else, and that includes Tesla. Now, Tesla paved the way for a lot of things, but Tesla didn't invent the things that you think he did. He got it from other people, right? Don't kid yourself on that. I have done a great deal of studies from those times, and I can show you that. Anyway, Don, on the other hand, brought out numerous things. Now, did he figure all those things out by himself? No. But he did share what he could. And that was all lost until I started doing this series and then bringing out, the book and all that, and all these videos. Now I brought out the video 1, 2, that were long lost, even though people went to those meetings that I've met, several of you. The rest of the world didn't have that. And that was the context. So much what he was writing later on were those 2 first videos. I brought that out because of a customer, Alex, gave them to me. And now I brought out these latest videos because another customer of mine finally I met up with, and he gave me those videos. And so thanks to those people, and my putting them together, you have them. And so that was some real pieces. I mean, the first two videos were the most important, critical information there. And yet, where are those videos not going viral? I mean, all these Don Smith video, groups and stuff, but nobody's like, those videos have not gone viral. It doesn't make any sense. Talk about suppression. Talk about people not caring. Like, what's the deal here? It doesn't make any sense why they're not being promoted. So, because they don't want to promote my channel, perhaps. Whatever. Anyway, so Don was relevant, very insightful, practical, but I would say that that information is all pretty much above a lot of people, because it's for people who are like ham radio guys, ham radio people that, you know, such people have a certain skill set. They don't have to learn those things because they already know those things. Like to do with you can't just understand basic electronics and then go to radio frequency stuff. You know, there's definite things that you won't understand. So you need to spend some time, do some homework, and then you'll understand more who he was speaking to. And I know people who paid him to find out information, but they were not in a state, they were too ignorant to know about the electronics, as they told me, to understand what he was referring to. And so Don said things like, learn like this thing. And that's one reason why I started doing the Kit 1. So that people who don't have any experience can do something. If they want to tackle it, there's a commitment. There's knowing even just the conventional side of things. So anyway, I've had enough with people saying these people didn't give us anything, and they were. So that's one of the big rumors. So there's several things, and I've brought this up many times now, but I'll say it again. Oh, if it was true, everybody would hear about it. Or the other thing being that Don was concealing things. And you know what? Those comments when he said he's under contract doesn't mean he was concealing the process. He showed you right then when he said it. It was more about the specific parts that he was using, or the specific model that he was doing, but he gave you the general idea. You can do it yourself. I've done it. Loads of people have done it, especially in Eastern Europe and Russia. There's loads of people that have done that. I know that for a fact. I've seen the devices that people have made. And, you know, it's not as hard as you think. The only hard part is what is in here. Your prejudices, your assumptions, your inability to get out of conventional thinking, conventional systems. But I will say again, to clarify again, I said earlier, all free energy systems are based upon processes within industry. There are all the processes I'm aware of that do a free energy system are already in industry. And it's assumed that they're not. But I know for a fact, and I've shown that through patent history. Patent history essentially shows you that it's just a combination of different processes that make a system over unity. And so it's looking things beyond the mere parts themselves into the whole environmental kind of global look at something where we're interacting. When you actually look at a lot of devices as they affect and pull in energy from the environment, you see that there is over-unity already taking place if you actually observe it. But when you confine something as if it's like in a two-dimensional space, then you miss the whole context. And so that needs to be considered, right? Anyway, that's it for now. I think I covered it, and I hope you enjoyed the video.